Hi, good morning. We are reading the story. Sorry we did not have time to do a video. We're just recording voices today. We are moving to page 18, though we're going to start with this last sentence at the bottom of page 17. Okay, we were talking about Abram and Sarah, and Sarai's name changed to Sarah, and Abram's name changed to Abraham. Now the Lord was gracious to Sarah, as he had said, and the Lord did for Sarah what he had promised. Sarah became pregnant and bore a son to Abraham in his old age, at the very time God had promised him. Oh, I remember that. We had talked about the appointed time. Actually, I think I might have cut this part off. That Isaac was born at the appointed time, that a lot of people, or some people maybe, will say that if Abraham and Sarah had not sinned and forced Hagar to be a mother and have Ishmael, then they could have had Isaac sooner. And that's not true. Isaac still would have been at the appointed time. Why? Because it was the appointed time.
I know.
It was the set time. In fact, I think he says it 3 times, that it was the set time, the appointed time, the set time for Isaac. So, quietly with the Legos, please. Sorry, we're also playing with Legos today. This is just my opinion, but God used the time between when he said that they would have a child, and until the time that Isaac came was many years. But God used that time to grow Abraham and Sarah in their character and in their walk with God, and grow them spiritually, because they had been in a culture that did not worship the true God. They had been in a culture that worshiped idols. So a lot of those things that they thought were of God, like child sacrifice, slavery, those things were not of God. And God had to grow them to show them that that's not who he was. Oh, well, he didn't really. This is before Isaac was sacrificed, so.
Isaac wasn't sacrificed.
Yeah, he wasn't sacrificed, but Abraham thought God was calling him to do that, and God had to show him, nope, that's not who I am. In fact, I sent my own son for you. So, Abraham gave the name Isaac to the son Sarah bore him. When Isaac was 8 days old, Abraham circumcised him as God commanded him. Abraham was 100 years old when his son Isaac was born. Sarah said, God has brought me laughter, and everyone who hears about this will laugh with me. And she added, who would have said to Abraham that Sarah would nurse children? Yet I have borne him a son in his old age. God gave Abraham a child of promise, but Abraham had a child already through Hagar. His name was Ishmael. What would become of Ishmael? Well, Isaac grew and was weaned, and on the day that Isaac was weaned, Abraham held a great feast.
What does it mean to be weaned?
Weaned is
Like he doesn't have to suck from his.
He doesn't have to feed. He doesn't have to have milk from his mom's breast anymore. This was the time before you couldn't go to the store and go get some formula for some milk. You couldn't go pick up a bottle. They didn't have those. If you had to use a mother's breast, those were essential. They were necessary. And it's very comforting for the child to have milk from his mother's breast. So weaned means they slowly kind of,
Weaned him off of it.
they start teaching the child not to seek comfort in how to soothe themselves. And we would teach you that there's a God that you can't see who comforts you, and how to reach out to God. Because I think, now I can't be sure, but I think children during this time got milk from their mother's breast to 3-4 years old, something like that. Because children need milk for a long time. But
sometimes they still need you.
Yes, and children need their mother for a long time. That is why the Lord does that, is make the mother so essential to the growth of the child, because the child needs the mother. And he does that on purpose. But Sarah saw that the son of Hagar was mocking Isaac, and she said to Abraham. Now, people use this phrase to be like, oh, Ishmael was being so hateful. Ishmael was, I think, about 16 years old during this time. And teenagers can be kind of hateful sometimes.
Their brain,
They are at a time when they are growing quickly. They're asserting. They're becoming a little bit more independent, and sometimes they become a little bit rebellious. Sometimes they say things they shouldn't say. But look at Sarah's response to Ishmael. She says, this is what she says to Abraham. She says, get rid of that slave woman and her son. She calls Ishmael who? Hagar's son. She's talking to Abraham. Guess whose son it is also? Abraham's. She's saying, get rid of that woman and her son. What she is saying is, that's not your son, Abraham. She is calling him Hagar's son because she doesn't want him to be associated with Abraham anymore. She said, and she says it again, for that woman's son will never share in the inheritance with my son Isaac. Because she sees how much older Ishmael is than Isaac, and she also knows that Ishmael is the firstborn, and the firstborn has the right to what?
To the inheritance.
The firstborn has the right to the father's inheritance, to the 2/3 portion, I believe. They get the greater portion during this time, and she doesn't want that. She wants Isaac to have it. So even though God has promised that Isaac is the child of promise, and that he promised, when he talked to Abraham, he established his covenant with Abraham and Abraham's seed. And he called only Ishmael Abraham's seed. But then he said, I'm establishing my covenant with Isaac. So he establishes it with Isaac too, even though he doesn't call Isaac. He never specifically calls Isaac Abraham's seed. However, he says anyone who is circumcised will become Abraham's seed. And so Isaac is Abraham's seed. He is literally Abraham's seed, but he's also Abraham's seed by faith, just like we are Abraham's seed by faith. And so God says specifically, I'm also establishing my covenant with Isaac and promising to give him the land. So he's promised it to Sarah. Well, he promised it to Abraham, but Sarah knows that Isaac is the child of promise. But what is she trying to do here? Is she trying to...
She's doing this again. She's trying to get she's like, they're not trusting God again, like they didn't trust God to give them Isaac through Sarah, so they got Hagar. And now they're not trusting God to give Isaac what they believe that he should have, so they're sending Ishmael and Hagar away.
Exactly. Sarah is once again trying to get God's promise through her own strength. And we say, oh, Sarah, silly Sarah, not trusting God. But we all do that. We hear a promise from God and we think, okay, now God has promised it. Let me go get it for myself. And God has to break us of that, usually repeatedly, like he has to break Sarah of this repeatedly. She couldn't obtain Isaac in her own strength. And she can't get the promise from God for Isaac to inherit the promised land, or Isaac to have a special relationship with God, or Isaac to be the great-great-grandfather of Jesus. She can get none of that in her own strength. And here she is trying to do it again. And she's going to cast out Hagar and Hagar's son. She's specifically not calling him Abraham's son, because if he's Abraham's son, then who has the right to the inheritance? Ishmael. So she's not going to call him Abraham's son, because if he's Abraham's son, he gets the inheritance. So he's not Abraham's son anymore. He's Hagar's son, and he's cast out into the wilderness. But this matter greatly distressed Abraham. Why do you think?
Because he didn't want to send Ishmael out one more time.
Exactly. He didn't want to send Ishmael. They already sent. Hagar already left. She came back. But this is his son. He loves his son. Yes, the son was conceived outside of God's will, conceived in sin, but he loves his son. It's still his son. And also, he already knows what happened from the last time that he listened to Sarah. The last time he listened to Sarah, he got into a bunch of trouble. Things got crazy in the house.
He's like, I don't know what's going to happen if I listen to her again. Or he'll be attacked by Roman soldiers.
So Abraham this time does the right thing. He turns to God. God said to Abraham, do not be so distressed about the boy and Hagar. Listen to whatever Sarah tells you, because it is through Isaac that your seed will be reckoned. I will make the son of the slave into a nation also, because he is your seed. Did you see what he just said? God said, he said, because Ishmael is your seed. Because God had already promised it. He'd promised it to Ishmael. And he's saying, I will make of him a great nation. He gives the same promise. A little quieter with the Legos, please. He gives the same promise. He already had given the same promise to Ishmael that he had given to Abraham. And now he's reaffirming it. He said, I know what I said, and I will do what I said I will do. I will take care of Ishmael. I will take care of Hagar. There will be a great nation from him. But he said, my covenant with Isaac to bring about the promise, which is the promise is fulfilled in who?
Fulfilled in
Jesus. The promise is fulfilled in Jesus. And so God agrees to listen to Sarah's word here, because he's going to bring about the promise of Jesus through Isaac. So in order for Isaac to inherit the firstborn's portion, Isaac has to be sent away. And this is a picture. Ishmael. You're right. Ishmael has to be sent away. And this is a picture of what Jesus did for us. Because they're pretending like Ishmael is dead, basically. They're like, get away. Let's pretend like you don't exist. But Jesus really did this for us. Jesus really went to death so we could inherit the firstborn portion. Because Jesus went to death for us, we get Jesus's inheritance. Now, Jesus gets it also. He claims it back, but we get it with him. We are equal partners with him. So, this is a sad part for Abraham, and Abraham has to do this by faith, but I'm glad that he checked with God this time.
Because last time, bad things happened.
Last time he did not, and there was all types of conflict in the house. Early the next morning, Abraham took some food and a skin of water and gave them to Hagar. He set them on her shoulders and then sent her off with the boy. She went on her way and wandered in the desert of Beersheba. When the water in the skin was gone, she put the boy under one of the bushes. Then she went off and sat down about a bow shot away, for she thought, I cannot watch my boy die. And as she sat there, she began to cry, and God heard the boy crying. It said God heard the boy crying. I'm wondering, this is a summary. I'm wondering if he heard Hagar too, because she was crying too. The angel of God called to Hagar from heaven and said, What is the matter, Hagar? Do not be afraid. God has heard the boy crying. It says it again. It must be the boy. As he lies there. The first time she was in the wilderness, God heard who?
Hagar.
God heard Hagar. This time he hears the boy. Not that he didn't hear her, but the emphasis is on who he's responding to right now. Lift the boy up and take him by the hand, for I will make him into a great nation. He says it again. The thing that he promised to Abraham's seed, who he called Ishmael, he says it again. I'm going to do what I said I would do. Then God opened her eyes, and she saw a well of water. So that well of water was already there, but she didn't see it. So she went and filled the skin with water and gave the boy a drink. And God was with the boy as he grew. And he lived in the desert and became an archer.
What's an archer?
An archer is somebody who shoots bows and arrows very well. All right, we're going to stop there. We're on page 19, and we will continue tomorrow.